Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, last episode, I ranked the ACC quarterbacks to start our quarterback ranking series. You guys let me know your thoughts, Ryan and Trey, and you were a little bit mean at times, but fair. Harsh, but fair. Ryan, you are up with the Big 12 quarterbacks here, and you should start with number 12. 12 quarterbacks, number 12.
It just makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, right? But, at Colorado and Nebraska and all those guys still.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 14.
Oh, yeah, 14. West Virginia's quarterback, Garrett Green. We saw limited action last year, but, enough to see who he was. And it was just bad. It was not very good. 55% completion percentage, just 6.3 yards per attempt, which is very bad, in case you didn't know. 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. Just he can run, which is good because he's going to have to run a lot, but just not high on him or the Mountaineers this year.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, number 13, the new kid in the block here. We got Cincinnati's quarterback, Emory Jones. He's taken over from Ben Bryant, who was a starter last year. He transferred out. He got a new coach, Scott Satterfield, coming in from Louisville. So Emory Jones, started at Florida, was there for a long time. I think 4 years he was there and was kind of the heir apparent from Kyle Trask days. And you thought Dan Mullen was going to get kind of a lot out of him, but just didn't really pan out the year that he was kind of Florida's quarterback. And then ASU last year wasn't very good. In fact, his backup came in and actually performed better than Emory Jones did. So I'm not so sure this is going to be, very good for Satterfield, but I'll give Satterfield credit. He does usually do pretty good on offense, and he does do well with dual threat quarterbacks, but I wish Jones would run more. I think he's actually doesn't rely on that enough for his game, but just not super high on him.
I can see that. I feel like Scott Satterfield kind of is getting buried, and I think he might do a decent job at Cincinnati, but I agree. I don't know if Emory Jones is the guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jones is better because of Satterfield.
I agree with you on Satterfield. I think people are just way too harsh on him. I still think
I'm not being too harsh. I'm not a big Emory Jones guy, but
yeah,
Satterfield's
no,
fine.
I'm not talking about you. You're fine, but other people.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, moving on. Number 12. Whoopsie. Number 12. We got.
I gave it away, but
it's okay.
The listeners still don't know.
They don't, and they don't know what happened and why I said whoopsie. Number 12, we have Alan Bowman from Oklahoma State. There's quite a few candidates actually that are up for this job, so it's not Alan Bowman's by any stretch right now, but that's my guess is going to be. You got redshirt freshman Garrett Rangel, Gunnar Gundy, and then they got an incoming freshman, even Zane Flores from the state of Nebraska, who's getting some good kind of publicity, or at least. So we don't know. But Bowman clearly has the most experience. This will be his 6th season of college football. And his best season was his very first at Texas Tech. He actually put up some very good numbers. And remember that? It was a long time ago, but everyone was like, oh, Bowman, all right, man.
I was a big Bowman guy.
He was, yeah. And even transferring to Michigan. I don't know. It's like,
I thought maybe
factor in there at some point. But
so if you that first year was great. And then ever since then, it's not like he's ever had a bad statistical season when in the times that he's gotten in limited reps. So he's got good career numbers, 34 touchdowns to 18 picks, 67% completion percentage over his career. That's good stuff. So, I mean, Oklahoma State's not going to have, they lost Spencer Sanders, that transferred to Ole Miss for their quarterback who was there for 4 years, I believe. And it's going to be interesting to see Bowman. They lose a lot. So I'm not sure what Oklahoma State's going to have, but he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good. For number 12, I think that's a pretty good number 12, but maybe I should have had him higher.
Not bad.
I'm just not high on Okie State. It's a problem.
Okay.
But moving on, we'll go to number 11, another former Texas Tech quarterback. You got Donovan Smith. He's transferred now to Houston, and he's in a battle with one other guy, really, Lucas Coley. He transferred in from Arkansas last season, but my money's on Smith. I think he's got a little more potential. Showed some flashes the last couple of years, whether or not Houston can and Holgorsen can get the consistency out of him. That's, I think, kind of his main question. Can he just be consistent enough? Decent numbers, 19 touchdowns, 10 picks, 64% completion percentage. So got some things, and he can run a little bit. He's a tough runner, especially down in kind of the red zone area. He's a big guy. So if Hogo can just get his numbers to improve a little bit, I think Smith can be pretty solid for him.
I totally agree with what you said. I like when you watch Smith. I like him. He just I agree that he needs to be more consistent.
Yep. All right, number 10, TCU here. We got Chandler Morris coming off of a national championship appearance. TCU losing Max Duggan, but this guy, Chandler Morris, actually beat him out to start the season.
Yeah.
Why isn't he number one, Ryan?
I know,
Max
right?
Duggan.
I think it's just one of those, what you would call it, Tennessee scenarios and Virginia Tech, Hendon Hooker scenarios where they just, for whatever reason, these guys just don't appreciate some of the quarterbacks that they have. Hooker, like, he was amazing. Like, two coaches just did not appreciate it.
It's weird that it's apparently very hard to just tell in practice who's the better quarterback, right? Like sometimes it's wildly different too. It's like, this guy was way better. You know,
I know.
We'll see
the
what
Max
happens with
Brown,
Morris,
the Max Brown Sam Darnold thing was like the total.
There's another one, yeah.
Well, yeah, but anyways, all right. So Chandler Morris, I mean, he got hurt, or else TCU season could have been drastically different last year. Who knows what would have happened if Morris stayed healthy? I don't know. Probably don't go undefeated, or well, close to it, throughout the regular season. So, I don't know. I guess you should expect Morris to be pretty good just by the fact that he did beat out Duggan, but his supporting cast won't be quite as strong. And it's just hard to project Morris because he actually hasn't played that much. You just haven't seen him a whole lot. He's had like one really good game in his career. It was like against Baylor a couple years back. But other than that, he just hasn't taken a ton of meaningful snaps. So I don't know. The jury's pretty still out on him.
It is, and he started last year, game 1 against Colorado, horrible Colorado team, and in the first half was
not great,
not good. So that was bad. But that's such a small sample that I don't worry about it too much. This is my first kind of big disagreement on the list. I would have him a few slots higher just because he did beat out Max Duggan. Like I think that says something. Yeah, Sonny Dykes knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. And I trust Sonny Dykes' development of Morris. I think he'll put him in good situation to succeed. And Kendall Briles, the new offensive coordinator, he's also great with quarterbacks. So I don't know. I just think I would have him higher.
It's also one of those things where you're talking all about the system and the pieces and Dykes. Yeah. What if you put this quarterback in front of him that you think? Yeah.
Well, when I'm that's a good point, and it's hard to separate. When I'm trying to make an argument for a player that is in a good system to be higher, I call it development. I don't call it the system. I say he's going to develop him into being a good quarterback. But you're right. It's
hard to say.
It's kind of hard.
I could be wrong. I could eat my words on that one, but I don't think I'm lower on TCU this year. So I don't think he'll be that great.
But I think he might be better than this next guy.
Okay, that's fair. So number 9, we have yet another transfer. There's just so many of these guys are transfers. We got a 2-time transfer. Keaton Slovis, now at BYU, started his career.
So I'm sorry to interrupt here, but every single quarterback on the list so far, not transferred this year, but they're all
Garrett Green transferred. I guess. Oops, sorry.
Was Garrett Green? Was he formerly at USC? I'm a USC fan, so I should really
look that up because I actually
know that more confidently.
I mean, statistically, I think he's only ever played for West Virginia. So
okay, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
That's interesting. All right, let me go on to talk about Slovis, and you'll figure this one out. So Keaton Slovis now at BYU, started his career at USC, and his first year at USC was amazing. Everybody was like, "Holy cow, this kid's going to be, incredible." But the 3 years that he's played after that, he transferred to Pitt last year. Not very good. Like he just has not had good numbers. And last year you thought, because Pitt had a pretty good ground game. So you thought like, okay, good ground game to lean on. You think Slovis would be able to put up some at least efficient numbers. Might not have to be huge, but just put up efficient numbers. But he didn't. 58% completion percentage, 7.5 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 9 picks. That's not good. That's just pretty bad numbers for QBs nowadays, especially on a decent team. So that's not too great, but I do think he's going to put up some better numbers as BYU's quarterback. I think they'll get a little bit more out of him. But it's, maybe 9 is probably the highest I could have put him here at this position. And I don't know. I think BYU will just be able to do a little better with him though. So
All right, and Garrett Green not a transfer, so
Okay.
I was wrong
So
on
that's
that.
the first one, yeah. All right. And neither is this next guy at number 8. He's Iowa State Cyclone so far in his career. Hunter Deckers, the lefty. Hard to judge him because I don't think he really had that great of a supporting cast. And Matt Campbell usually finds a way actually to get more out of his quarterbacks than he did with Deckers last year. So it's a little hard to say what I truly think of him at this point. I want to see what he does this year. His yards per attempt was really low, 6.7, threw the most interceptions in the conference with 14. That's alarming. But I do think, in his second full season and some more experience around him, I do think he's going to have a pretty good jump this year, especially with Matt Campbell sticking around. But so this is a little bit more of a projection. I think those numbers will look a lot better this year.
All right, this is another disagreement for me. I would have him lower. I know he was a good recruit, and you gave some excuses for him, but way too many interceptions, no explosion in the passing game. Like, I just got to see something before.
Fair.
I mean, yeah, before I have him. I mean, not that Chandler Morris has really shown anything
pretty
either,
weak
but
conference, so it's hard to say.
But like, he's played bad, so I would punish him for that. But he's got the potential, so maybe you're kind of hedging there. Maybe he'll make a big jump.
I'm projecting. This is a projection list.
By the way, Garrett Green, 2008 was a USC player in 2008.
Wow.
So that's how
a long time transfer.
Getting old, and just memory's not quite
You were
there.
there.
Well, it's
at
sort
that
of there.
time.
It's somewhat there.
You were a student. You should have known.
That's probably why the name is familiar to me.
Yeah. Wait, Garrett Green, was he a defensive player?
He was like a quarterback that I think switched to receiver. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But
okay.
Either way,
Yeah.
that was 15 years ago. Nice.
Yeah, not too bad. All right, moving on. Number 7. We're getting to the top half of the conference, and we got Blake Shapen at Baylor. Took over the starting job last year after he beat out Gary Bohannon, who was the previous starter for that previous year. And so I think a lot of people, and understandably so, including maybe most of us, thought that after beating out Bohannon, he was going to be pretty good. His numbers just weren't that great. I mean, he had 18 touchdowns, 10 picks. Not horrible, but not great. 7.6 yards per attempt. Okay. 63% completion. Okay. So it was just like, okay. He was an okay quarterback last year. Doesn't really add anything on the ground, so that's not very good either. So it's just, he's kind of your middle of the road quarterback in the Big 12 right now. He's not bad, but he's not good. I do think he'll get a little better this year, so that's, I guess, why I have him in the top half of the conference. But he's got to improve quite a bit if Baylor really wants to kind of jump back into the conference title picture like they did a couple years back.
He's tough. I'll agree with you. He's tough because the end of 2 years ago when he stepped in and helped them win the Big 12 championship game, like, you could see the potential. You're like, wow, okay, like, I understand why Aranda's gonna have him be the starter the following year, and it just obviously didn't come to fruition. But you have to remember too, I guess Baylor as a team progressed. Their defense wasn't as good as it was the year before winning the Big 12 title. So it's kind of put up or shut up now, but he's shown both.
Exactly. Tough. All right. On to number 6. Got Tyler Shuck, another transfer from Oregon originally. Now he's at Texas Tech. Been in college for 4 years. And he's never managed to play more than 7 games in a season. So just that kind of leaves a little bit of a doubt there for me. But when he does play, he's been pretty solid. Didn't have necessarily the best numbers last year, just 60% completion percentage, 7.4 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. So not that great. He did actually kind of run it a little better than I anticipated as far as, being a dual threat. He had nearly 300 yards in the ground in 7 games. That's pretty good. But for me, it's like, he's got to stay healthy and he's got to finish out a whole season. So it's hard for me to put him higher than this, but based on his numbers and his productivity and how he's looked when he's played, I think this is a deserving spot. But if he can do it for the whole year, maybe he moves up a spot or 2 even on this list. And I think Tech could be pretty solid. So, but it's not exactly Tech's system of old either. So you're not going to see the air raid type, but they do.
Well, you got you got Zach Kitley. So
Yeah, you got Zach
I mean,
Kitley. I checked that, and soon like last year wasn't like that, but it's true.
well,
Kitley
last
could,
year they had Zach Kitley as well, but they
but year
had some O
2,
line issues, and yeah,
yeah. So I think he'll probably improve on those numbers.
yeah.
So
I like Tyler Shuck. I think he's good.
Yeah.
I might have had him, if he stays healthy. But yeah, I probably would have had him ahead of.
that's
this
why I
next guy,
factored
but-
in. I factored in that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's just some positive momentum with Texas Tech as a program. And they won. I think they finished the year winning 4 in a row. They whipped Ole Miss in their bowl game. Like
That can change fast, but yeah,
it can, but I'm just saying they're trending nicely right now.
I know. I hope they do, and I hope they continue. Like I would be, and it, with the new version of the Big 12, like they could do it. As far as recruiting, like they could be one of the top recruiting teams in that conference. So they could do
with the way they
that OU and
recruited
Texas are
last-
gone, and the new the way they're recruiting now, so they could lead the way. So yeah, it's actually probably some pretty interesting, exciting times there. If you're a Texas Tech fan, you're
For sure.
probably
they're pumped.
yeah, they're pumped to see OU
And they
and
should
Texas
be.
leave, right? Yeah, like that's kind of interesting.
Oh, to see. Oh, I don't know about that.
Right?
I mean,
What do you think? Like, if there are any Texas Tech fans listening, like this or on YouTube or anything, let us know. Like, I want to hear opinions on that. Like, are you excited that Texas and OU are leaving? Because maybe now you'll theoretically have a legit chance to win the conference, but does it also?
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't get to play them, and does it hurt your national brand? Maybe, but
yeah, it could end up being a blessing in disguise, like with
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But
Okay.
they could benefit. They won more games. But all right. Moving on. Top 5 in the Big 12. We got number 5. We got John Rice Plumlee, former Ole Miss Rebel, took over the starting job last year at UCF. Played pretty well. He did. He's a true dual threat guy. His passing numbers ended up being pretty decent. That was obviously the concern from him. Could he throw the ball? He passed for over 200 yards per game, or almost 200 yards per game, I should say. 60. Hey, come on. Now.
I think
Couple hundred yards per
Glad it's got a
game
low
these days.
bar.
Couple hundred yards per game, 60. But considering how great of a runner he is
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
He's a good
He's not a
runner.
great passer. I'm not saying that, but
Good
he-
baseball
he-
player too.
Yeah, he performed better through the air than I would have thought. 200 yards a game, 63% completions, 14 touchdowns, 8 picks. Not bad through the air. Like, there's some numbers that I've said before that are worse.
Yeah,
So-
I
good
want to
enough.
see the Gus Malzahn of old. That's
I
what I
hear
want
ya.
to see.
But he had 900 almost 900 yards on the ground and 11 rushing touchdowns. So, that's huge numbers from the quarterback position. So,
Yep.
I think he's a pretty.
I like him.
I think he's a solid quarterback. He's not going to be bad. You're going to get good running out of him. He's a good enough passer to kind of complement his running. But I like him. I think he's pretty solid.
Yeah, being that great of gives you a pretty high floor.
Exactly. All right, number 4, Will Howard, Kansas State. This one's tough a little bit for me, but 4 is pretty high. He was a really good change of pace guy last year compared to kind of the starter for them was Adrian Martinez. Just because he was more of a pure passer, Martinez was dual threat. So when Will Howard came in, their passing game just kind of exploded, compared to Martinez for sure. He played in just 7 games, but he had averaged over 8 yards per attempt. So he was throwing kind of deep balls all over the place. He had 15 touchdowns, so just 4 picks. So the numbers were pretty darn good. I'm just kind of interested to see this year. He's the guy, and teams know, other coaches know Will Howard's the guy. They don't need to be ready for a dual threat guy like Martinez. And they see him the whole year. So can he do it for a full season when they know, he's the man? Kind of remains to be seen.
They lose Deuce Vaughn too.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Yeah, so I'm a little concerned with that, but you can't
But I
argue
think
with
this is the right spot.
Okay,
Yeah, I think this is
yeah. All right, fair enough. Good. So, but it's there's at least some kind of questions you have from him.
Yeah, you could see the efficiency maybe down slightly, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. All right, into the top 3. Interesting top 3 here. Quinn Ewers from Texas. So last year his numbers weren't all that impressive. 15 touchdowns, 6 picks, under 60% completion percentage, which is not good at all. 7.5 yards per attempt, also not very good. but it was his first full year. As a starting quarterback, wasn't fully healthy. That is a major concern. So I'm kind of anticipating his health will be much better. Yeah, so I'll have more of his arm will be a little stronger, maybe a little better off. But I think in year 2 of the system, he's got a really good receiving core. I think his offensive line is going to be even better. I know he loses Bijan Robinson, but there's still some good running backs and his skill talent around him. The receivers are great. So I think he's going to put up some pretty darn good numbers. I just think Texas is going to be better overall. I think his defense will be even a little better, so he won't have to maybe do quite as much. So I don't know. I feel like Texas is just on the right kind of path right now. So I think his numbers will kind of benefit from that. From a good team, I think his numbers will improve.
Yeah, this is one that people watching might be like, maybe say a Kansas State fan would be upset because, hey, what is Quinn Ewers? Would be really efficient last year. But, and maybe, Texas Tech fans with Tyler Shuck as well, like, hey, we've seen him perform. But I'm okay with it. I would have Quinn Ewers this high as well, just because you got to factor in that huge upside that he has as a former number 1 overall recruit. And just, I think there's going to be a big jump forward this year. I would project that as well. You're projecting, like you said.
I'm projecting. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they are picked to win the conference also. So
yeah,
clearly a lot of other folks think that Texas's offense should be pretty darn good. So, all right. Number 2, I got Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, former UCF quarterback. He passed for over 3,000 yards on 8.6 yards per attempt. So pretty good. 25 TDs to just 6 picks. So he led a good offense. He also did a little more on the ground than he had in years past, over 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. So that was good to see. So you got to be encouraged by those numbers. Obviously, the defense was just so bad that it kind of maybe hurt Gabriel's, I don't know, the opinion of maybe Gabriel nationally. Just if OU had a really good defense and OU's went like 10-2, maybe Gabriel's looked at a little differently, So I think that's a little unfair. So I have him number 2, which is pretty darn good. And I don't know, he kind of impressed me last year. I was a little worried about him going into the Big 12, a new conference.
I don't know why you were, but
I mean, like relatively, but I knew he was going to be pretty good numbers at OU. But I mean, they did go 6-6.
Well, yeah, not his fault.
Not really. All right. Well, to the maybe the most surprising, at least number 1 in anywhere, Kansas. Yeah. I mean, what the heck? Kansas is quarterback number 1, right? That's insane.
Not since Todd Reesing, and even then, man.
True. Yeah, I don't know who else was around then, but Jalen Daniels of Kansas. That's just nuts. So he just was electric last year when he was in. He played in 9 games, over 2,000 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, just 4 picks. And he was great on the ground, 425 yards and another 7 touchdowns. So he was so electric, and he got him off to such a great start last year. And everybody was just kind of on the Kansas bandwagon, like, oh yeah, they're so great. And Daniels was so good in that. And unfortunately he did get hurt. So that kind of, curtailed his season a little bit, but he did kind of finish really strong in the bowl game against Arkansas. You guys remember what he did? He had over 500 passing yards in that game.
No, that Liberty Bowl, he lit it up. He was the best player on the field.
I mean, so like, I know bowl games can get a little interesting, but we started last year, and then just obviously the finish, over 500 yards passing and 6 total touchdowns. So I think most people have number 1.
Yeah, I don't know about most, but yeah, they're
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some people would have Gabriel for sure. Maybe some viewers, if you just are really projecting, really believing in him. But I guess I would have Daniels number 1 as well. Part of me is looking at, he went down, and then Jason Bean came in and was great also. So it's like, is it
not as great, but he was good.
I mean, the numbers are pretty similar. Like he was pretty dang good. And but then I think, and it's like, well, I don't do that with Ohio State quarterbacks. Everyone that comes in is great. Yeah. I don't really downgrade them, or USC quarterbacks or what have you. So maybe that's not fair to Jalen Daniels. But yeah, I mean, he was awesome.
It's crazy their offense, though. I mean, wow, just fun.
The offensive coordinator, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the full list for the YouTube viewers. Trey, any general thoughts on?
No,
on the
I want to go back
quarterbacks?
to the. I know we just kind of talked about it, but again, purely projection level, and there would be some criticism, but that's fair. I don't care. 1 through 3, in my opinion, could have been in any order. Just 'cause I'm a believer in Ewers this year, so I know that's the one that people will be like, "What the heck?" But I think you could put those guys in any order. But it is interesting. Like, there's some guys at the very bottom, like if Bowman shows his flashes, could definitely jump into the top half. Donovan Smith showed flashes at Texas Tech. Chandler Morris, I mean, we just saw what Duggan did. So, like, I think like 10 through 12 really could end up being like 4 through 6 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think compared to, like, there are some guys at the bottom of the ACC episode that we did that were like, ooh, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. This list, I mean, other than Garrett Green, I guess, I could see any one of them being decent.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yeah.
It's not quite as bad at the bottom, but I don't know. But overall, it is fairly weak, kind of, top 10 compared to the ACC, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ACC is definitely better overall. Just clear, power numbers or whatever. ACC's, I think, a better conference. But I think this conference was pretty hard, and it's just like, I mean, you've seen some positives, some negatives from a lot of guys. Like Alan Bowman, I had him 12. Maybe I should put him like 7th. I don't know. It's so hard to judge on these. There's so many
Yeah,
factors.
no, I agree.
to think about.
5 through 12 looked pretty. 5 through 13 really, I guess, looked pretty tough to assemble.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, I think that there was a drop off after 6. I think I like the top 6, and then Tyler
Okay.
Shuck, you had 6. I would have had Plumlee 6, but whatever. But then I do think below that, like Shapen,
Yeah,
and like I
that's
said,
fair.
Deckers I would have lower, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. I don't know, but
Okay.
Jumble them up. There won't be many. We won't be surprised by any of the results. Let's put it that way. I think in that jumble
You never know.
mix right
But
there.
how good this list is really kind of overall, I feel like at the end of the season, really like Quinn Ewers needs to take
Yeah.
that big step and be great.
Oh, yeah.
And then you could say like, all right, maybe there's a good.
You got to have
good
3
quarterbacks
guys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or if Will Howard just kind of keeps the
Yeah.
efficiency for a full season, then that would be pretty impressive too.
It would.
Okay, well, that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. We will be back next episode. We're going to go through the Big Ten quarterbacks, and it'll be Trey's turn. So, again, thanks
on.
for watching and listening. See you next time.